Welcome everyone, this is Kerjims channel. Now we are back to our episodes of Similar Champions and Comparison, featured by Wanwan, League of Legends versus the Mobile Legend Bang Bang. But before that, please like and subscribe to my channel and don't forget to click the bell right now so you will be notified to our next episode video. Let's do this!
Taliyah was always a little different from the other kids in her tribe. The Shuriman teen was stronger and braver than the others, and she could manipulate and reshape the earth using her mind. As Taliyah's powers grew, she began to worry that she might accidentally hurt someone she cared about. So, she left her family and the desert lands she loved to gain control of her abilities. Taliyah has now returned from her journey across Valorant, newly determined to protect her people from the dangers rising from Shurima's sands. On the Rift, Taliyah is a traditional mage with cataclysmic lane-altering spells and out-of-combat mobility that makes her faster than a rock. Taliyah's passive is rock surfing, which gives her extra movement speed when traveling near walls. The bonus drops off when she casts a spell, or takes damage. Is Threaded Volley, which tears up rocks from the ground around her, letting her fire them in a target direction, dealing damage in a small area of effect. She's then free to move around while firing, basically like a Lucian ultimate. All rocks in the volley after the first one that lands deal reduced damage. Casting Threaded Volley turns the area around Taliyah into worked ground for a few minutes. Further volley casts over worked ground will refund half the spell's mana cost, but yields only one lonely little rock. Worked ground doesn't affect Stoneweaver's allies or opponents, but it does give her a small speed boost when she travels over it. When trading in lane, try to leave patches of unworked ground in an easy-to-reach spot. When your opponent steps out of position, hopscotch over to the fresh dirt and start Stoneweaving. Is Seismic Shove. On first cast, she marks a target location, which, after a brief delay, erupts, knocking up and damaging all caught enemies. Taliyah can recast Seismic Shove before it erupts and toss her victims in a targeted direction. It can be hard to land Seismic Shove on mobile enemies, but don't take the ability for granted. You might just need to swat away a sneaky spider. Unraveled Earth scatters boulders onto the ground before her, damaging and slowing all enemies they strike. After a few seconds, the field erupts, dealing a second wave of damage. Opponents who dash through the boulders blow up any rocks they touch. This also works if enemies get tossed into the field somehow, like by a Seismic Shove or a headbutt, for example. Plant Unraveled Earth to slow the approach of big spinning juggernauts. Or use it to block off a path so you can make your escape. Here's the real reason you bring Taliyah to your team. Gigantic walls of impassable terrain from halfway across the map. When Taliyah casts a roll switch, Weaver's Wall, she summons a massive wall of spiraling rock that tears through the rift in a target direction, knocking aside enemies and blocking their movement just like a regular wall would. Taliyah can reactivate Weaver's Wall while casting it to ride atop the wave as it emerges. Taking damage or inputting a move command in any direction while riding will cause her to hop off. If she doesn't reactivate while casting, the wall will simply complete its trip without her. To collapse the wall early, you can hit that R button once again. Also, enemies will be able to see and hear the wall as it emerges, even through fog of war. Use Taliyah's passive to surf within ult range of an ally's lane. Then, use Weaver's Wall to blast in behind your opponents. With their escape route walled off, Cogmon's Soraka had a really rocky start for this fight. Taliyah needs to keep one foot on unworked ground to deal maximum damage with her spells. Here, Taliyah engages just as this section of ground refreshes, allowing her to unload a full barrage of Threaded Volley onto Zarek. The move speed buff she gets from the other worked ground in this lane lets her close in on the glowy blue dude. The flash isn't just a dime. It actually plants her on fresh, unworked ground just a stone's throw away, which lets her kill him. Taliyah's spells work best when she sets herself up with Unraveled Earth to make it easier to land a full combo. Taliyah slows Xerath with her E, then Seismic shoves him back in. A quick-threaded volley finishes him off. It can be difficult to land Seismic Shove on freely moving enemies, so Taliyah is often best off waiting for her teammates to engage so she can pile onto an easy target. Here she zones out Volibear and Leona, so Vayne can safely punch them both into the mid lane turret. When Morgana finally catches Volibear with a Dark Binding, Taliyah sees her chance. She lays out a queen-sized bed of rocks in front of the bear in the big blue armor and tosses him to his doom. Taliyah's wall is great for splitting up enemy teams, but she's got to be careful that she's not screwing over her teammates instead. Anytime you ult alongside your allies, remember that you're actively creating terrain that blocks their path, which could completely lose your team the game. Taliyah is excellent at flanking while her team sieges. Noticing a greedy defense by Kog'Maw and Soraka, a simple Weaver's Wall removes all hope of escape without flash. Because it's a 4v2, there's no need to put herself in danger, so Taliyah decides not to ride her wall, and instead approach her opponents via Rock Surge. A quick Seismic Shove helps take down the Soraka before anyone else can truly defend them. Weaver's Wall is good for setting up picks, but the strongest walls just leave enemies out in the cold entirely. When Taliyah sees Volibear thundering in for a Baron steal, she ults to block off nearly the entire river. Some Unraveling Earth and a Seismic Shove plugs the gap in the wall and keeps the bad guys at bay.
First of all, we're going to cover the runes. Pretty standard rune page, guys. We're going to go Electrocute, Taste of Blood, Zombie Ward, because that's my personal favourite, especially when you're playing Taliyah, because you're going to be moving a lot around the map. And then you're going to finish that up with Ravenous Hydra. Relentless Hunter is also something you can experiment with, but I've just found that Ravenous Hydra works a little bit better for me. I'm going to go through the build actually throughout this video, so make sure you keep watching to kind of see what I build. And then next, what I'm going to do is quickly talk about some of these matchups. Some of her matchups. So what I'm going to do is kind of go through decent matchups, the average matchups, and the bad matchups. Let's start first with the decent matchup. So I think decent matchups for Taliyah are the ones that give her a lot of space in lane to be able to move and control the wave. So these are matchups such as like Akali. I actually think Kassadin, this is going to be quite controversial, but I actually think Kassadin is a good matchup for Taliyah, purely because I think it's super snowbally for Taliyah, that you can pressure her Kassadin really, really hard early game, which can actually translate to you impacting the whole map. I think Orianna's a decent matchup for Taliyah. I think Talon's a good matchup for Taliyah. I think Zoe and Vita both pretty decent as well. And in my experience, these sorts of matchups for Taliyah allow you to push the wave, move and impact the map, which is really, really what you want to be doing on Taliyah. And you'll kind of see, and the way this video is going to go, guys, and I'm actually going to show you a few different examples. I'm going to show you not just one laning phase, I'm going to show you 3 different laning phases so you can actually see what I mean, and I'm not just talking bullshit here, guys, so it'll make a lot more sense. Average matchups are the ones that can either go, they're either way depending on the jungle matchup and depending on the skill of the players and the era of the players. So these are matchups such as Yasuo, Aurelia, Fizz, Azir, Cassio. And the reason I call them average is some games you play them and you hit your skill shots quite well. They either play it poorly or you have a decent jungler who's able to capitalize on a favorable wave position. I just find that these matchups are quite 50-50 to be played, they're quite skill reliant. And then you got the bad matchups, and these ones are bad because either A, they have so much threat on you that it's like pretty much impossible to play your champion, or they can build waves against you early and kind of just completely shut you down. So these are champions such as Diana, Syndra, Karma mid, Lucian mid, Nocturne and Kiana. So these either build with, like I said, of something that can continually push you in, pin you under tower, and make it really, really hard for you to play the game, or they just have so much threat on you that you can never push out and you can never get their roams off. So that's kind of like, and if I haven't mentioned the champion, I've just kind of done the core ones, then they're most likely, leave it below actually in the comments if you have what you think, like if you want my opinion on how you would play that matchup, just leave it below in the comments. Otherwise, get straight into the gameplay. First of all, guys, we're going to start with a VOD of Taliyah versus Yasuo. Alright, let's jump straight into it. So, like I was saying before, we're playing Taliyah versus Yasuo. So guys, whenever you're playing Taliyah versus
any matchup where you feel like you're gonna get hard shoved in level 2, 3, like 1, 2, 3, even 4, what I highly recommend, like I said before in the runes, you're gonna be most likely taking zombie wood, is actually using your level 1 wood here, in this location here. So the reason is when you take zombie wood, obviously after this expires, it's going to drop a ward there after it dies. And what this is going to do is going to give your team, your jungler specifically, a lot of information about, you know, where the enemy jungler is. Can that person or can your jungler then use this information to set up ganks in your lane because they're going to be pushing into you a lot. It's just something that a really good habit to get into because you're not going to be using your ward for the first 2 minutes of start because you're just going to be shoved in. And this is very common in matchups when you're versus Yasuo because Yasuo ends up just shoving you in the whole early laning phase. And there's been so many times where I'm just like, you know, I'm like 4 or 5 div guys in any of these lanes when you're versing a melee champion is ideally what you want to be doing is keeping the wave in this location here. And what that's going to do is going to give you 2 things are going to happen. It's going to either allow him to be quite vulnerable to getting ganked, because obviously melee matchups, league matchups is going to be very vulnerable to getting ganked. And then also, with Taliyah what you can do is you can, once the minions actually kind of stand still and stay still, you can walk past the minions and actually cue him, chase him down the lane like you would as like a Rise or you know, any other melee matchup. You just chase them down, but in Taliyah, you can actually chase them down with you, and I'll show you what I mean actually. I do it this game. So, what I'm trying to do is thin the wave a little bit so it doesn't build up too big so I can keep the wave outside my tower. So as he pushes me in here, I'm thinning as much as I can. I don't want to allow him to build up too much of a wave. And making sure to auto attack as much as I can. So what I actually see here, and guys, you can do this in any of your games, if the person moves out of the lane to ward, and actually you see the minions settling like this is actually a go sign for you to walk up and actually start pressuring them off with Q. Look at this. Then I walk up, I'm like, wait, he's giving me too much space. And if they give you too much space, this is exactly what you can do if the wave's in your position, like I said before. You can chase him down, make sure you use your corrupting pot during the trade so you kind of get that extra damage and stay healthy. But yeah, that's a really solid trade. Now, he started going wave. I have still 2 corrupting pots and a biscuit, so in terms of sustain, I'm completely fine here. And the wave's in a really awkward spot for him, so I'm constantly auto-attacking whenever I can. I'm getting as much damage on as I can. Something I recommend, guys, something you can probably even do better than me this game, is try and position to the sides. Because what that's actually going to do, say you want Yasuo to lean onto the bot side, where your jungler's going to be. A really interesting thing you can do is actually start leaning onto the top side here, and this is actually going to force Yasuo to lean onto the other side, because he doesn't want to get hit by your abilities. He wants to lean onto the other side of the minions, so that doing soon is actually positioning on the top side of the lane, trying to force Yasuo onto the bot side of the lane, which is going to open him up to getting ganked by my jungler, because my jungler's part of it. That's just a quick little tip, guys.